Would you mind taking a seat? Thank you. Make yourself as comfortable as possible. We're going to be here for a little bit. I have quite a few different tests pulled for you. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different tests that will give us quite a wide view of you. So I would love to start with a very famous test called the Rorschach test, or in German it's more like the Rorschach test. And I am going to be sitting to the side of you and a little bit behind so that you're not watching me for any cues in what you see in the images that I'll provide you. So I'm going to show you some pictures and you'll just tell me about them. You'll tell me what you see. It's very easy, very simple, and there are no wrong answers. So I'm just going to sit back here. I will show you the different Inkblots, and then we'll go back through the sequence. So we'll look at them twice. Just a perusal the first time, then we'll get in depth on the second time. So this is number 1, number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now we're going to go back through and just look at these a little closer. When you look at this image right here, what do you see in it? Doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter how random you think it is. Tell me about what you see here, and then if you can point out what you see. Where do you see that? Okay, we'll do the next. What about in this picture? What do you see here? Okay, and can you tell me about where you see that? What particular features make you think of that? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next. Now picture number 3. Can you tell me about this one? Okay, and where do you see that in the picture? Okay. Right. And number 4, what do you see here? Okay. Okay, and tell me where you see that in here. Okay. And this one. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. And what do you see here? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Getting a little more color here. So tell me about this particular ink blot, what you see in it. Okay, and if you could just point out, yeah. Good. Number 9 here. What do you see in this ink blot? Mm-hmm. Okay. And last one. What do you see here? Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. For our next test, let me just grab my glasses. It's going to involve a bit of reading on my part and a bit of visualization on your part. So I am going to have you just close your eyes. And I'm going to give you some instructions and ask you some questions. So, this test is called the park. I'd like you to close your eyes and picture a park. Picture a park, and we are going to fill in the landscape a bit, and I'm going to ask you some questions about what you see. Firstly, can you tell me what season it is in the park? Mm-hmm. And is this quite open park, or does it have a lot of trees? Or is it maybe more dotted with a few trees here and there? Good. Now, as you're looking at the park, do you see any gardens at all? Even just a few plots here and there. Maybe there are quite a few, or maybe there aren't any at all. Okay. And what about any playgrounds? Is there a playground present in this park? How about people? Are there people walking around? Any children playing? Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to have you picture a lake at this park. Picture a lake. If you could just tell me the size of the lake. Is it quite large in relation to the park, or is it more like a pond? What about the color of the water? If you look at the water, what color is it? And do you see any fish at all? Do you see fish swimming in the water? If so, how many do you see? And are there any fountains in this lake? Any little decorative fountains? Okay. Now I'm going to have you look at the lake and add in some birds. Maybe this is some ducks. Maybe you add some geese or a different kind of bird. What kind of bird do you see? And how many birds are there? Okay, very good. You can go ahead and open your eyes. Now let's walk through the interpretation of this particular exercise. So as for the season, if it was spring in your park, this means you are a cautiously hopeful individual. If it was summer, you are quite easily and readily an optimistic person. If it was fall, you are more realistic, and winter indicates pessimism. As for the landscape, if it was open with no trees, you are a confident and outgoing individual. If there were a few trees, you may have some softer, sensitive spots, but overall you are a secure person. And if it was packed with trees, if there were quite a few, then this indicates that you might be more of a shy or insecure person. And for the gardens, the more or the larger the garden you had, the more importance you place on beauty or aesthetic. For the playground, if there was a playground, you might be a carefree and even frivolous individual. If there was not, you might be more grounded, but maybe more rigid as well. For people, if you had lots of people in your park, you are an extroverted kind of person. If you had a few people, then you might be more introverted. And if there were none, some might call you a sort of hermit, or you might be sort of isolating yourself. And for the size of the lake, if you imagined a large lake, this could be indicative of being a fanciful person. And if it was a small lake, more of a pond, this indicates more of a down-to-earth personality. For the color of the lake, if it was more dark, this could indicate you are lonely, or maybe you are a bit of a worrier. If it was brightly colored, you are content with life. If it was more murky, this might indicate that you are uncertain as a person, or maybe you feel quite lost. And if it was a green lake, this indicates that you may feel unhappy in your life. As for fish, if there weren't any fish, this means that you have few people that you form meaningful relationships with. Some fish means that you have at least a couple good relationships that you can trust. And lots of fish means that you have a lot of relationships you treasure. For the fountain, if you didn't have a fountain at your lake, this may indicate you are more of a calm and simple person. Simple as in you don't need a lot, right? And one fountain means you are more of a romantic person and you see the beauty in things. More than one means you are quite imaginative, maybe even fantastical. For birds, if you had ducks in your lake or at your park, you are an easy to please individual. Geese means that you have high standards. If you had a different bird, you expect reasonable effort from other people. And a mix of birds means that you are a people pleaser. And as for the number of birds, the more birds you have at your park, the more you feel like you have expectations on yourself. It's relative to how many expectations you feel on yourself. If you have a lot of birds, you might feel like you have a lot weighing on you. Now this next test is called the Inventory of Phonetic Associations. I am going to give you a made-up word, and I will give you 2 possible definitions. I would like you to tell me what definition you feel that word should mean. For example, if I say Zapanor, do you think that means sharp or blunt? Zapanor. Okay. And what about gub? Does this mean fast or slow? If this were a real word, would it mean fast or slow? Gub. G-U-B. Okay. I'll just keep asking about these made-up words. What about hilo? H-I-L-O. Hilo. Would that mean bright or dark? What about thash? T-H-A-S-H. Thash. Should this mean angry or calm? How about lusua? L-U-S-U-H-A. Lusua. Would this mean angry or calm? And vek. V-E-K. Should this mean angular or rounded? Good. And how about glander? G-L-A-N-D-E-R. Should this mean small or large? How about gip? G-I-P, gip. Should this mean small or large? Good. Gilden. G-I-L-D-E-N. Gilden. Would this mean friendly or hostile? Thub. T-H-U-B. Thub. Would this mean angular or rounded? Mog. M-O-G. Would this mean slow or fast? And what about groit? G-R-O-I-T. Groit. Would this mean healthy or sick? And how about ngob? N-G-O-B. Ngob. Would this mean chaotic or organized? And tulb. T-U-L-B. Tulb. Would this mean sharp or blunt? Boger. B-O-G-R. Boger. Would you think this would mean masculine or feminine? Boger. And how about ngo? Y-N-G-O, ngo. Happy or sad? I think it means happy or sad. Okay. We've got a few more here. Just need to flip the page. And how about moop? M-O-O-P. Would this mean sharp or blunt? Okay. And how about skult? S-C-U-L-T. Friendly or hostile? Skult. How about grr? G-U-R. Grr. Does that mean sophisticated or rugged? And holo. H-O-L-O. Holo. Would this mean linear or circular? Okay. Now, I am going to be having you close your eyes again, and we are going to do a little word association test. This means that I am going to say a word, and you tell me the very first thing that comes to your mind, as fast as you can. It doesn't matter if it seems random, doesn't matter if it goes at all, just the first thing you think of. Don't take any time at all about it, okay? Alright, so if you close your eyes and I say the word orange, what's the first thing you think of? Good. And what about the word curtain? Okay. Snow. All right. Effort. Effort. Okay. Shy. Pillow. Magic. Energy. Blue. Sleep. Tidy. Shoes. Hard. Good. Watch. Gather. Excel. Tree. Sink. Spoon. White. Pear. Island. Sugar. Touch. Carpet. Dog. Door. Parent. Mirror. Dark. Soft. Cold. Bread. Smell. Rest. Perfect. Arch. noodle, fail, bird, water, pants, careful, snail, and book. Okay, you can go ahead and open your eyes. Sometimes we get some real funny answers out of that, don't we? But sometimes we get some very interesting, insightful answers about things we don't even really think about. Now, the next test is called the Open DISC Assessment Test, the Open Disc Assessment Test. I'm going to give you a list of statements. I'd just like you to tell me whether you disagree, slightly disagree, if you're neutral, you slightly agree, or if you agree with the statement. Number 1, I have a strong need for power. Disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, slightly agree, or agree. I try to outdo others. I am always on the lookout for ways to make money. I seldom toot my own horn. I hesitate to criticize other people's ideas. I want strangers to love me. I make lots of noise. I enjoy being part of a loud crowd. I love order and regularity. I value cooperation over competition. I read the fine print. I just want everyone to be equal. I put people under pressure. I joke around a lot. My first reaction to an idea is to see its flaws. I am emotionally reserved. Okay, very good. Now for our last test, we have the Open Hemispheric Brain Dominance Test. And this works with the same scale as the other test. We have disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, slightly agree, and agree. Now, the Open Hemispheric Brain Dominance Test is a fun little test that is supposed to tell you if you are more of a left-brained or a right-brained kind of person. So, number 1, I do not need others' praise. Disagree, slightly disagree, neutral, slightly agree, or agree. Okay. I would prefer a math class over a pottery class. I never show up late. I don't bother to read instructions before putting something together. I could not live in a mess. Let me just get our other page. Number 6. I am totally random. I like working with words. I behave in a businesslike manner. I often come up with something new. I am not easily disturbed by events. I rarely cry during sad movies. Number 12. I plan my life logically. I need a creative outlet. I make decisions based on fact, not emotions. I make a mess of things. I get stressed out easily. I am romantic. I prize logic above all else. I often forget to put things back in their proper place. I am calm, even in tense situations. Okay, excellent. Now, in terms of what left versus right brain means, the left brain is said to govern different properties like language, logic, critical thinking, numbers, and reasoning, while the right brain is supposed to be more for recognizing faces, expressing emotions, music, reading emotions, visualizing images, intuition, and creativity. Now, the left versus right brain sort of debate, sort of hypothesis, if you will, is not actually true. Both sides of your brain are involved in all of these different properties, processes, what have you. there might be one side of the brain that does a little bit more with one thing or another, but for the most part, it's pretty equal. Now, let's go through our test. Now, the very first test we did, the Rorschach test, the Rorschach test, this is an interesting test in that it can tell us a little bit about how you think. Now, there are some answers with each of the Inkblots that are essentially more common than not. Most people will find these particular images in the Inkblots. Now, if you see something wildly different, or in the pictures you see, they have a certain sort of subject matter, that is where we maybe find some patterns that are not of the average sort of thinking pattern. So we have the Inkblot test. Now the Park, that is one of our relational psychology tests. It's almost a bit like a pop psychology personality test, really. And while I was going through the interpretation, were there any particular parts of that that stood out as true, or maybe were they wildly wrong? How did you feel about the interpretations? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Okay, and actually going back to our Rorschach test, do you feel like what you saw in the Inkblots was fairly normal, or did it feel rather strange? Did it feel like maybe you picked some abnormal sort of images in the Inkblots? I'm not going to tell you one way or another, it's just more the subjectivity, how you felt about it. Good. Now, in terms of the inventory of phonetic associations, so the answers you picked were fairly regular for this sort of test. Now, this is an interesting test because when faced with a word that is not a real word, I suppose, a made-up word, a lot of people, the majority of people, will give the same sort of definition for the word. Now, this could just be based on how other words that sound like that word would be. Like, for example, zappanor. For me, for example, that sounds like a sharp word as opposed to a blunt word. And I think it's that zap in the beginning of zappanor. And gip, for example, small or large, just feels like a small word to me. So, if you answered something much different for many of the words, then this can be a sign of neurodivergence in that you might not have these sort of conventional word sounding rules in your mind like other people might. For the open disc test, this is sometimes used as a sort of personality test from different workplaces. So this is just getting a general feel of your personality. And similarly with the open hemispheric brain dominance test, they're basically general, sort of rounded, blurred images of your personality. The word association, as we went through it, can sometimes bring up some interesting associations. Sometimes it's very simple, like maybe you hear the word cold. The first thing you think of is sandwich. But sometimes you hear the word excel and you think of the word never. So it can be a little hit or miss, but sometimes you find some really interesting little tidbits in that. That's what's fun about psychology, is oftentimes you are reading between the lines. You are measuring just as much what people are not saying as what they are saying. Let me just put this back together. So that is the completed test. Did you have any other particular thoughts, any feelings, anything you would like to add about our test today? Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. Good. All right. So, I look forward to, in the future, working with you, especially with these results. I can use these and come back to them. And if you want, we can always do some more. There is a wide range of different sort of psychometric tests, different personality tests, different thinking tests. So you just let me know. All right? Okay. Thank you so much for coming in and being so cooperative with these tests. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a whale of a day and a good rest of your night. Thank you.